If your hands have known your body longer than any partner, why do they still make you feel nothing? For decades, you've turned to the same private habit, something so natural it barely needs thought. And yet, somehow it's stopped giving you the satisfaction it once did. The truth? It's not your age, it's not your hormones, it's not even your body, it's how you've been doing it. Most older men never talk about this. Some feel awkward, others assume it's just part of getting older. But science and your own body are telling a different story. Small habits done the wrong way over and over can silently kill your sensitivity, disconnect you from your emotions, and leave you feeling more numb than alive. This video is not about shame. It's about freedom from outdated myths, silent guilt, and mechanical routines. Because when you understand the most common mistakes older men make with masturbation, you can start reclaiming something much deeper than pleasure, confidence, intimacy, and connection with yourself and with others. So, if you're over 60 and still treating self-touch like a rushed secret, stick around. What you'll learn might not just surprise you, it might change the way you relate to your own body, starting tonight. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't feel wrong, but deep down, it also doesn't feel like much anymore, does it? You've been doing it for decades, same routine, same grip, same outcome. You finish and walk away, relieved maybe, but satisfied, fulfilled, not really. Over time, something's changed. And if you're being honest, it's not just about age. It's about the way you've trained your body without even realizing it. Your brain is wired to respond to patterns. When you give it the same kind of stimulation over and over, same angle, same pressure, same timing, it adapts. What used to feel electric now feels dull. And here's the kicker: your nerves are still there. Your pleasure is still possible. But your brain no longer recognizes the signal. That's the silent damage of repetition. It creeps in slowly. And by the time most men notice it, they think the damage is permanent, but it's not. This is known as sensory adaptation, and it's the same reason you stop noticing a smell after a few minutes, or stop feeling your clothes on your skin. Your brain tunes out what feels repetitive and unchanging. The same thing happens with sexual touch. You might call it a rut. In medical terms, it's more like a neural dead end. You reach for more pressure, maybe grip tighter, just to feel something. But that only makes it worse. You're digging the same ditch deeper, and one day you notice you're barely feeling anything, and wondering if something's broken inside. Here's the truth: nothing is broken, but your body is asking for change. The first step: break the pattern. That doesn't mean giving it up, it means waking it up. Try switching hands, change positions, slow down instead of speeding up. Don't focus on the finish line, explore the road that gets you there. Notice the textures, the temperature, the rhythm of your breath. All of it matters more than you think. These may sound like small adjustments, but they send a powerful signal to your nervous system. Pay attention, this is different. And that signal, it brings your sensitivity back to life. You've spent years tuning your body to numbness, but the beauty is you can tune it back to pleasure. It's not about youth, it's about presence. Repetition makes the body forget. Curiosity helps it remember. And here's a question most men never ask themselves: when was the last time you explored your own body like it was new again? You probably didn't mean for it to become a habit, but one day, the usual pressure didn't feel like enough, so you gripped tighter, then tighter again. Over the years, your body started expecting that same intensity to feel something, anything. And now, gentle touch feels like nothing at all. This is what experts quietly call the death grip syndrome. It's not a disease, it's a habit. One that tricks your nervous system into needing rough mechanical pressure to reach pleasure. But here's the problem: your partner's touch will never match that. No matter how loving, how connected, or how intimate, they simply can't replicate the grip you've trained yourself to rely on. And that's when frustration creeps in. Not just in bed, but in your self-worth. You start thinking something's wrong with you, that maybe you're too old, that maybe desire just fades. But the truth is, you've conditioned your body to respond only to one type of input and ignored everything else. The good news? What was learned can be unlearned. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, doesn't disappear with age. In fact, older men who take the time to vary their physical routines often discover that sensitivity returns in ways they never thought possible. But it requires patience and a willingness to try something new. Start small. Use less pressure. Switch hands. Change your position. Try using a textured object, a sleeve or a soft glove, to disrupt your normal pattern. Even something as simple as slowing down or using both hands can create new sensations that reawaken your brain's response. At first, it might feel strange or even unsatisfying, but that's part of the process. You're teaching your body to feel again, not just finish. And if you're wondering if it's too late, the answer is simple. It's only too late if you never try. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s have reported dramatic improvements in pleasure just by loosening their grip and focusing on sensation instead of speed or climax. You don't need to fight against your body. You just need to stop numbing it. Ask yourself, have you been chasing release or avoiding real feeling? Because when you strip away the roughness, something else surfaces. Emotion, connection, even vulnerability. And for some men, that's what's really uncomfortable. Not the lack of sensation, but the return of it. But there's no power in being numb. Real power comes from presence, from choosing to feel, from letting your body speak again, softly. At first, then louder, clearer, and more alive than it's been in years. Now here's the twist. The death grip might just be the symptom. Not the cause, the root. It may lie in how you've been rushing through the entire experience and what that habit is silently doing to your nervous system. You've probably heard it by now, on a podcast, from a self-help book, or whispered through so-called spiritual circles. Hold it in. Preserve your energy. Don't ejaculate, it weakens you. At first it sounds powerful, like you're taking control of your body, channeling that sexual energy into something bigger. But what if that belief is actually harming you, not helping? Let's get one thing straight. There's nothing wrong with self-control. In fact, mindful choices about your sexual health are a sign of strength. But retention without understanding can quickly turn into self-denial. And in older men, the cost isn't just mental, it's physical. When you constantly hold back day after day, week after week, your body doesn't magically convert that energy into creativity or confidence. Instead, it builds tension. And the tension shows up in real, measurable ways. Trouble sleeping, increased irritability, difficulty concentrating. Some men even report pressure in the lower abdomen or pelvic discomfort, which can put unnecessary strain on the prostate. You're not storing energy, you're storing stress. Science shows that regular ejaculation helps regulate hormones, reduce stress, and even improve prostate health. It supports better sleep, boosts mood, and contributes to a healthy immune response. And yet, because of shame or misinformation, many men over 60 fall into the trap of thinking that not releasing is somehow better for them. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes. You're trying to feel powerful by withholding, when real power comes from balance. Masturbation isn't just about pleasure, it's about emotional regulation. It's about reconnecting with your body in a way that's grounding, human, and healing. When done with intention, it becomes less about the climax and more about the connection. If you've ever finished and felt guilt instead of peace, it's time to ask yourself, who taught you to feel ashamed of something so natural? And why are you still carrying that weight? Releasing is not weakness, it's not waste. It's a form of reset. It reminds your body that it's alive, responsive, and whole. Holding it in, just because someone said so, can create a pressure cooker inside you, and eventually that pressure finds a way out, in anger, anxiety, or disconnection. So here's a gentle challenge. Don't ask, should I retain or not? Ask instead, am I listening to my body or trying to dominate it? Because your body will speak if you let it. It will tell you what it needs, not based on rules, but on rhythm. And when you start listening again, something shifts. You stop trying to control your sexuality and start learning to trust it. But here's the twist. Even when you do give yourself permission, there's another trap waiting for you. A mistake. Most men don't even realize they're making. One that turns self-touch into a mindless rush instead of a meaningful act. You wake up, maybe you're bored, maybe you're anxious, maybe you just want to fall asleep faster. So almost without thinking, your hand goes where it always goes. 5 minutes later, it's over. No emotion, no build-up, no curiosity, just a routine, a chore, a habit that feels more like brushing your teeth than honoring your body. And that's where the real danger begins. When something as intimate and powerful as self-pleasure becomes just another item to check off your day, it loses its magic. It becomes mechanical, thoughtless, and soon the pleasure you once knew feels like a faint memory. Not because your body isn't capable, but because your mind has stopped showing up. This rushed autopilot approach rewires your brain. Over time, your nervous system associates masturbation not with joy, but with stress relief, distraction, or sleep aid. And when that becomes the norm, your capacity for deep, fulfilling pleasure gets buried under layers of habit. You feel disconnected from your own body, and even more disconnected during intimacy with someone else. But it doesn't have to be this way. Imagine, just for a moment, slowing everything down, turning off distractions, breathing deeply, letting your body set the pace instead of your mind. What if you approached self-pleasure not as something to get done, but as something to experience? This is where the shift happens. This is where masturbation turns into self-care. And no, it's not about candles or mood lighting or any fancy techniques. It's about presence. It's about actually feeling your body again. Every movement, every sensation, every breath. Slowing down doesn't take away the pleasure, it multiplies it. Think about it like this. Would you rush through your favorite meal without tasting it? Would you skip to the last scene of a great movie? Then why rush through something as personal and meaningful as this? When you approach it with patience, something beautiful unfolds. Your sensitivity begins to return, your mind relaxes, your breathing deepens. The tension in your chest starts to lift. It's not just physical, it's emotional. You begin to feel whole again. And yet, many men avoid this slower pace. Why? Because stillness makes you feel things you've been pushing away. Loneliness, vulnerability, even grief. But those emotions aren't enemies, they're signals. Signals that you're alive, that you're paying attention, that you're finally reconnecting with you. So here's a simple invitation. Next time, go slower. Breathe. Be curious. Not because it's a trick, but because it's a gift. And while you're slowing down, something else will become clear. Something most men overlook entirely. Because if you've been touching the same place the same way, you might be ignoring some of the most powerful sources of pleasure your body has to offer. For most men, touching yourself means exactly that, touching. One specific part of your body, over and over, decade after decade. But here's a question almost no one asks. What if you've only been experiencing a fraction of what your body is capable of feeling? Our culture trained men to focus on one area and ignore everything else. The goal was always simple: fast climax, quick release, no distractions. But in doing that, you've skipped over some of the richest, most rewarding sources of pleasure your body holds. And now, especially after 60, when your body begins to crave deeper connection, ignoring these areas isn't just limiting, it's numbing. Let's talk about your real pleasure map. Your neck, your inner thighs, the space behind your knees, the sides of your ribs, your ears, the area between your testicles and your anus, the perineum. These aren't just body parts, they're zones packed with sensitive nerve endings, each capable of triggering waves of sensation when touched with presence and intention. And here's the truth, the older you get, the more your body appreciates this full-body approach. Why? Because your nervous system may need a bit more time and variety to respond, but when it does, it rewards you tenfold. Touch isn't just physical, it's emotional. It tells your brain, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm worthy of care. When you ignore the rest of your body, you're not just limiting sensation, you're limiting that emotional feedback. You're turning something that could be soulful and grounding into something robotic and surface level. So how do you start? Gently. The next time you take time for yourself, try placing your hands somewhere new. Run your fingers along your chest, your stomach, your thighs. Explore with no goal other than awareness. Feel the skin, the temperature, the texture. Let your breath guide the rhythm. No rushing, no chasing, just discovering. You might be surprised by what awakens, by how little touch it takes to create big feelings, and by how your body responds when you stop treating it like a machine and start treating it like a whole, sacred vessel. Think of it this way. If you were only reading one page of a beautiful novel over and over again, would you ever understand the story? Your body is that novel, and for too long, you've only been touching one sentence. Here's a final thought. When you begin to treat every inch of yourself with curiosity, you'll start to notice something else too. Your comfort, your ease, your skin's sensitivity. They all depend on one simple but overlooked detail. And chances are, you've been getting it wrong your whole life. Let's be honest. Most men over 60 don't think twice about lubrication. You grab what's nearby. A little soap, some lotion, maybe even spit, and just go with it. But what seems harmless in the moment can quietly damage your skin, your sensitivity, and your long-term comfort in ways you probably never imagined. Here's the truth. The older your skin gets, the more care it needs. And nowhere is that more true than in your most intimate areas. As testosterone naturally declines with age, so does skin elasticity, natural moisture, and the speed of healing. That means anything too harsh, too dry, too perfumed, or too thick can cause irritation, micro-tears, or long-term desensitization. Many common products like hand lotion or shampoo contain alcohols, artificial fragrances, and chemicals that were never designed for delicate tissue. You might not feel the damage right away, but over time, it adds up. Dryness, discomfort, redness, even burning sensations that can linger long after the act is over. And then there's the worst side effect. Your body stops trusting touch. Pain becomes part of the pattern. Your brain remembers discomfort and starts associating it with pleasure. And suddenly, something that once felt safe and enjoyable begins to feel awkward, even unpleasant. All because of what you thought was just fine to use. But here's the good news. Fixing this is one of the easiest and most rewarding changes you can make. Start by switching to a high-quality, body-safe lubricant. Look for options that are water-based or silicone-based without artificial scents, dyes, or additives. These products are specifically formulated to protect sensitive skin, reduce friction, and enhance natural sensation, especially for mature men. They're not just about slippery, they're about comfort, safety, and longevity. Using proper lube doesn't make you needy or weak. It makes you wise. It tells your body, I care enough to do this right. And once your skin feels safe again, your brain starts to respond differently too. Your touch feels better. You feel more relaxed, more open, more connected. If you've ever found yourself rushing or avoiding pleasure because of discomfort, the problem may not be you. It may be what you're using. Here's something most men never consider. What would your experience feel like if nothing burned, nothing itched, and everything felt better than expected? Because when your body is finally free to feel, without pain, without distraction, you start to reclaim a type of intimacy most men forget exists. The kind that's soft, patient, responsive, and once that door opens, another one does too. Because even with the right touch, the right pace, and the right care, many older men still carry something deeper, something that sabotages their pleasure before it even starts. You were taught early on, maybe through silence, maybe through scolding, that touching yourself was something to hide, something shameful, something boys grew out of, or men never talked about. And so, over time, you learned to rush, to avoid eye contact with the mirror, to never mention it out loud, not because it was wrong, but because you were told it felt wrong. Now, decades later, the shame still lingers. It shows up in small ways, feeling awkward when your body responds, downplaying your own needs, silently, questioning your desire. You might even feel embarrassed for still wanting to feel good, as if there's a time limit on pleasure. But here's the truth. There is nothing shameful about knowing your body, nothing weak about desiring connection, even if it's with yourself. In fact, for older men who've carried decades of silence and guilt, choosing to honor their pleasure can be one of the most radical healing acts of self-respect. Think about it. You've survived heartbreaks, stress, illness, maybe even loss. You've weathered years of putting others first, and now your body is asking for something gentle, something grounding, something real. Will you keep turning away out of habit, or will you finally turn toward it with compassion? When you strip away the shame, something powerful happens. Masturbation becomes more than just physical, it becomes emotional release, emotional regulation, even emotional recovery. It tells your nervous system, I'm safe, I'm cared for, I matter, and that's something no one else can give. It has to come from within. Shame tightens the body, it shortens breath, it shuts down curiosity. But kindness, it opens everything. If you've ever felt like you're too old to be thinking about sex, ask yourself, who decided that aging and pleasure can't coexist, and why should you keep believing it? Self-pleasure isn't juvenile, it's not selfish. It's a reminder that you're still alive, still sensitive, still deserving of joy. Try something new tonight. Approach yourself with the same care you'd offer someone you love. Slow down, be present. Touch your body like it belongs to someone who truly matters, because it does. And if guilt creeps in, greet it with curiosity, not judgment. Say, thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need you anymore. Because once you give yourself permission to feel fully, honestly, unapologetically, everything changes. Your pleasure becomes richer, your emotions settle, and your sense of self deepens. But there's still one more step, one last piece to this quiet revolution. Because even with the right technique, mindset, and care, the real reward comes in the rediscovery of something most older men thought they'd lost forever. There's a quiet moment, maybe after a slow breath, maybe after a different kind of touch, when something inside clicks. Not the kind of click that ends in release, but the kind that whispers, I still feel, I'm still here. That's what this entire journey has been about. Not just pleasure, not just routine, but reconnection. With your skin, with your heartbeat, with the parts of yourself you forgot were even there. Because for too long, many men have mistaken performance for intimacy, release for connection, and shame for silence. But today, that story can end differently, because everything you thought was gone with age was never gone. It was just buried under years of rushed habits, quiet guilt, and a belief that growing older meant growing numb. But now you've seen the truth. Your sensitivity can return. Your pleasure can expand. your confidence can rise. Not in spite of your age, but because of it. You're not the same man you were at 30, and that's a good thing. Now you move slower, not because you're weak, but because you've learned to savor. You touch with more awareness, not because you're unsure, but because you understand the value of feeling. You've traded friction for finesse, quickness for quality. And in that shift, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing a moment and start living inside of it. Reclaiming your pleasure isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you to hide. And that return, that homecoming to your body, changes everything. It spills into your confidence, into how you look in the mirror, into how you speak, how you walk, how you love. You feel more grounded, more open, less afraid, because you've reminded yourself, this body, this life, this moment still holds magic. So now, one final question. Will you keep touching yourself the way you always have, or will you start touching the parts of your life you've been neglecting too? Your body is listening, and it's ready. Ready to feel again, ready to be treated with respect, ready to carry you into a chapter where pleasure isn't something you lose with age, it's something you master with wisdom. If this video opened your eyes or your heart, take a moment to give it a like, not for the algorithm, but for yourself. Leave a comment and tell us, how old are you and where are you watching from? You're not alone. You're part of a quiet revolution of older men rediscovering what it means to feel alive. And if that's a journey you want to keep walking, hit subscribe, because pleasure never expires, and neither does your right to claim it.